How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk, guys. Today we're going to be talking about the Training Academy. I've been getting a lot of emails. I guess September is a big month to start Training Academy, so there's a lot of people that kind of have some questions of what to expect in the Training Academy or what should be expected of them. So my guest today will be Joe Paponio, and we're going to go over, a little bit tips and advice of what you can expect from the Academy, but also what they should expect from you. It's a pretty good dialogue. I think this will help you if you're getting ready to start the Academy. I definitely know it's timely because I've been getting some emails. So let's just kind of revisit this discussion. And by the way, guys, we have discussed this in the past before, especially did one with Louis Soto. So if you put Academy Tier Talk Louis Soto, we had a really good discussion. But let's revisit. I have Joe Paponio on, as I mentioned, and we'll go ahead and maybe provide a different perspective. But before we start, I just want to go over our sponsors. We have American Military University. Let me use the bigger one for that. American Military University. If you guys are looking for a degree, seek higher education, please check out American Military University. They're very supportive of what we do in corrections and also very supportive of what we do here on Tier Talk. And again, we got to get people with experience to be in those classrooms providing that level of education. So again, if you guys get a chance, please check out American Military University. They also have programs for people that work in corrections. We also have Inmate Manipulation Decoded. That book is available, doing very well. It has sold many copies. It's used for training all across the country. The link to that is in the description. You can find that at Target, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles. And again, the book does very well. So thank you guys for the people that continue to support the book. And my next book that's coming out, August 24th, by the way. So this is pretty good. I got a chance to kind of publish the book, make it look more professional, add a little bit more to it. And it's being published by Blue 360 Media. And the book is called How to Succeed in Corrections. It's got tons of advice, tons of tips, not just for myself, but for other professionals in the field. As you can see, the picture is right behind me on this side over there. It's hard to do it in this mirror. So I'm looking at that is hard right there. it's like the opposite, right? I guess I could just went that way. Either way, it's a good book, got tons of information, definitely something that will help anybody pursue a career in corrections. And notice I said the word career, not a job. And it's on Blue 360 Media. The link to that is in the description. If you pre-order it, you get the ebook, softcover book, and you also get an app, which I think is pretty cool. Now let's get Joe. What's up, Joe?
What's happening, Anthony?
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Training Academy. Before we get into that dialogue, do you mind introducing yourself, sir?
Absolutely. My name is Joe Paponio. I'm a retired lieutenant from the Texas Department of Corrections of 29 years and 6 months, and currently working in a local county sheriff's department in the jail division, and a panel member for Tier Talk.
And we love having you, Joe. Now, real quick, before we get into the discussion, I want people to know that a lot of agencies, because I guess they're looking to save money, don't always send their rookie COs, their cadets, their trainees, whatever it is, to the academy first. They may send them on-the-job training to see if it's a job for them. And then if they feel that the person really is committed, they send them back to the academy. And I guess it's a way to save money, so I can understand it, but I don't agree with it, because when you enter that facility, I believe you do need training for so many reasons. But one main reason is, if you're next to me, I expect you to have my back. And a lot of the people that don't go to the training first are not certified, and they can't. So for me, if you're working next to me, I do expect you to have my back when needed, but I also expect you to have the proper training to have my back. But Joe, real quick, what's your thoughts on people that don't send their trainees and recruits to the academy first, but rather on-the-job training and then to the academy?
Yeah, I'm not a real big fan of that. To me, it's, in my opinion, it's a liability issue waiting to happen. At our agency down here within the last couple of recent years has started by instituting what they call an apprenticeship or an internship, where they actually bring people in free world clothing and pair them with people on security post. Not trained, hadn't been to the academy, not chemical agent certified or certified in anything else for that matter. They're just a person that walked in off the street, and now we got them with an officer in a control picket somewhere or by offenders, and just not a big fan. You know, and I'm kind of with you. If somebody is in that institution, you know, I feel they need to be fully trained and they need to be ready to respond and act.
Yeah, and guys, as we go into this discussion, I think you're going to see other reasons as the dialogue progresses of why we feel the need for the academy first. It's going to probably come across as we express some thoughts about what should be expected of you, because again, the academy is going to help you reach those expectations, but also what you should expect from the academy. So real quick, when I went to the academy, I kind of considered it like going back to school. I mean, the first thing is, yeah, you got to get the physical. We get that. But before we get to that, you're going to get prepared for some classroom stuff too. You're going to get introduced to case law, policy procedures, you know, how the facility runs, disciplinary process, communication, interpersonal communication, radio communication. You know, there's just so much that has to be introduced to you in a short frame of time that's going to introduce you to this side of the criminal justice system. And it's impressive because it's a lot. I mean, you are going to be reading your books. You got to pass those tests. You got to show people that you understand the knowledge that's going to be in front of you. And by the way, this to me is one of the most important parts. Yeah, we got to get the physical. Don't get me wrong, but the classroom matters because this is the foundation for understanding the world you're going to be entering. So yes, we do need you to be physically ready and prepared to do the job, and we'll get to that. But you also got to understand this part of the process. You know, can you write a report? You'll be taught that. I mean, this really does matter because in the long run, most of the time we're communicating, we're, you know, writing reports, we're doing stuff that really involves an understanding of the world that we work in. But Joe, let's talk about classroom, Joe. If I was a recruit and I'm going in to the academy for the first time and I'm getting ready to sit into a class, you know, what am I expecting along the process of the academy? What am I expecting to be taught in the classroom?
Well, I mean, you know, first of all, as a cadet, you know, you want to go into the academy with an open mind, with no preconceived notions. You know, I know a lot of people tend to watch things on TV and tend to think it's fact. You know, as a cadet, you should expect to be taught basic fundamentals of the institution life, policies and procedures. You should expect that, you know, to be challenged both mentally and physically. You know, the biggest challenge I found in teaching academies were, you know, I would say 80% of my students probably never handled a firearm in their life. And, you know, some of them were deathly afraid of firearms. You know, as a cadet, you should know that, you know, it's part of your job description and job requirement. So, you know, definitely expect that as well. But, you know, expect, you know, us to not so much break you down and build you back up, but, you know, we're there to open your mind and to teach you the basic fundamentals of what actually happens in an institution and how to handle those.
Yeah, and guys, don't expect when you get ready to learn firearms that you're going to go right in and start shooting a gun. There's classroom before that. You know, that you're going to learn, you know, in a classroom first, the fundamentals of the gun, how to hold the gun, all that stuff before you even given a gun. You know, a classroom is a big portion of that day, and you have to prove that you understand that knowledge before they even put a gun in your hand. You have to show that you're efficient in comprehending the information that's coming your way. And that includes anything that could lead to some level of application, whether it's putting on restraints or using specialized equipment. You're going to be taught in a classroom first before you even put your hands on it and start trying to figure it out through application. So remember, everything that we do when it comes from using our firearms to specialized weapons to spraying OC, whatever it is, we are sitting in a classroom first, discussing why it needs to be utilized, when it needs to be utilizing, make sure that we understand the tool before we actually put our hands on it. So again, it turns out to be a pretty lengthy dialogue in a classroom before you actually go and try to apply it. But that's the key with the academy anyway. The key with the academy is to provide you with a foundation before application. And then the physical, I mean, yes, you know, the physical could involve what we're training to do. So like using the fire alarm, like the firearm, the application behind it all, you know, the the use of the OC. I mean, that could be partly physical, the defensive training or defensive tactics, which now we've been leaning towards MMA, which is mixed martial arts, because back in the day it used to be I touch you here and full. No, now we know most of the fights wind up going to the ground. So, you know, a lot of it is about how do we defend ourselves on the ground, prepare to get hit in the face during those trainings, because that's the first thing sometimes you get tested on, because if you can't take a hit in the face and still maintain your emotions, you know, that's a big concern. So you're going to get tested. And then obviously each academy or each agency is going to have what you need to meet physically. Like, I need to be able to do 25 push-ups, run a mile and a half in 15 minutes, maybe 25 sit-ups, whatever their standards are. I'm not going to say that you don't need to exceed it, because the best way to accomplish those standards is always shoot for the moon. But having said that, you really need to be able, before you go in, know what those standards are and make sure you're able to meet those standards, because that is something that will be required. And if you don't meet those standards, the academy will not pass you. At least that's how it used to be when we were hiring quality over quantity. I don't know if it's changed so much now because of the understaffing, and right now we just need the numbers. But with that said, you got to make sure that you can physically meet those requirements. What's your thoughts on that, Joe, for the physical side?
On the physical side of it, you know, you definitely have to be in some sort of physical shape. You don't have to be Superman, but it does behoove you to have some sort of physical shape, especially if you're one that hasn't exercised in a while, or, you know, you don't do anything that requires any kind of physical exertion on a daily basis, like going to the gym, riding a bike, whatever. You know, but knowing ahead of time that you're going to the academy, it would definitely be helpful to get yourself into some sort of routine, whether it's practicing push-ups, practicing pull-ups, maybe jogging around the block a few times, just to see where you're at, you know, on your timing as far as that goes, and your endurance.
It's funny that you said that, because when I was testing my endurance before I went into the academy, I mean, I was able to do the push-up steps. I wasn't too concerned with that, even though in Jersey we did get pushed to extremes. I knew I could bang out 25 of that, 25. I mean, but it was the running that would get to me. I was concerned that I couldn't do the mile and a half. Now, granted, a mile and a half in 15 minutes is not really too overwhelming, but I didn't know that. So I actually, because I'm not a dedicated runner, I was able to run around my block. And then before I went to the academy, I was able to run around my block 5 times without stopping. And then I was able to do the mile and a half. I mean, I wasn't impressive with it. There were people that were ahead of me, but I did it about 13 minutes, you know, give or take 13 minutes and change, where I saw people hugging on the 15-minute line, and I saw people making it in 9-10 minutes. You know, so I was kind of just making it through, because I think, to be honest with you, some people could speed walk it and almost make it at that time.
Oh, yeah.
It's just keeping your body in motion. But yeah, so again, I love what Joe just said. You know, just know what you're going into, and don't just wait to get yourself in shape. You know, when you know you got the academy coming up. Sometimes that's the reason why the academy could take a few months in between, because they're giving you the option to say, okay, you know, you're going to academy. Let's get yourself moving for the next couple of months, at least get something kick-started, and then we'll go ahead and try to cultivate the rest. So next part, guys, this kind of relates to why I believe people should have an academy first, is the academy does provide a good and needed foundation. The one thing I don't like is when after you graduate academy, some of the senior officers will tell you, forget everything you learned in the academy. I disagree with that. The academy is the foundation for what you're going to apply all that knowledge from when you're walking around the facility. So technically, the academy gives you the foundation. The facility is going to start teaching you the application of what it is that you're learning. So this is policy and procedure. Let's see how this applies in the facility. So this is disciplinary. Let's see how that applies in the facility. So again, having that foundation is great, because then when you enter the facility, you're kind of learning now, how does that transition into application? And that's where the on-the-job training will help. But when you don't have that foundation, you're expecting the on-the-job training to do both. Give you the foundation and then tell you how it's applied. I believe that the academy gives you the foundation, gives you a general understanding of the world you're walking into, what's expected of you, And then, you know, I'm sure there'll be some adjustments because you're learning things very generalized. But when you get to the on-the-job part and you're physically in the facility, they'll kind of help you cultivate what you've learned and apply it to the facility. But Joe, again, foundation versus application. Would you agree that the academy gives you that foundation and on the job kind of teaches you how to apply it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's our sole purpose in the academy, is to give you the foundation, to give you a solid foundation to walk into that institution with. You know, and you're absolutely correct. You know, the foundation does no good without the application later on, and the application does absolutely no good without the foundation beforehand. You know, the basic, even though they tell you to forget things that you're taught at the academy, only because at most states, you know, there's different institutions and different layouts. You know, the basic principles are still the same, but how they're applied at that particular and specific facility may be a little bit different. But the basic principles are still the same. You got to have that foundation.
Yes, and I love what you said real quick, because you said a good thought. You know, without application, you know, without foundation, it's harder to apply. And when some people mention that, again, we talked about briefly, to forget what you learned in the facility, forget what you learned at the academy. Again, what Joe said is spot on. When someone says that, they're telling you forget about the foundation. Well, if I don't have a foundation, I don't know the why behind what I'm doing. So for people that say that, don't say that, because I think what they're trying to tell you is, like, the academy doesn't matter. I disagree. There's a lot of things that the academy provides that is needed before that person enters that facility. So what I would honestly do is I would definitely keep the academy in communication with the facilities, make sure that we're teaching things that are still current and being able to be utilized. Again, you know, hopefully hiring people that have experience. So we're teaching from experience, because that's a good way to get credibility. It's hard to get credibility if you're teaching things that you've never done. But again, you know, keeping that communication between the facility and the training matters, because again, that's where we work together. So I know we're on the same page. So when I get Joe, let's say, from the academy, I know that you've learned stuff that I can now, you know, help you apply. So we're on the same page. I don't like when people say that, because to me, that shows a disconnect. And right at the very beginning, and you're telling me I learned all this for 4 months and it's useless? Guys, don't do that. We don't want to show a disconnect between those two components. We want to show how it connects. So again, you come in from the academy. Okay, so what did you learn? Hey, if someone trained, what did you learn? Oh, really? Okay, so let's see how I can help you with what you've learned already. Try to show the connection. So again, one last thing: if you're in the academy and you're getting ready to teach people from the foundation from the very beginning, make sure you're in contact with the facilities to see what's going on. Make sure you have some experience as well. And then when the person goes from the academy to the on-the-job training, if you're the training officer, ask the rookie what they're learning. Obviously, be in communication with the academy. And let's keep that connection. Would you agree with that, Joe?
Yeah, you got to have that communication between the academies and the facilities, because, you know, in Texas, the facilities range, you know, in layout and in different styles. You know, of course, your minimum custody facilities are going to run a little different than your mediums. Your mediums are going to run a little different from your maximums, and your closed custody and SEG is going to run way different than, you know, all of them together. So it's very important for the instructors to stay in communication with the surrounding units. You know, down here, they have them by regions. We have 6 regions, and each region has its own academy. You know, so it's very vital that the instructors stay in good communication with the facilities to understand what's actually going on there. We were required to go work a facility at least 2 days a week, you know, a different facility, just to, you know, stay in tune with what's going on and then bring that information back to the academy instructors.
Yeah, and that experience provides credibility. And let's be honest. I mean, that's going to give credibility to the instructors. And I think that also gives a lot of credibility to the ever-evolving program, because training is forever evolving. You know, so we need people that don't just teach from yesterday. They teach from where we're at right now and where we could be tomorrow. So the next thing I want to talk about, and this actually is covered in my book briefly, So we talked about COVID a while ago and had discussions where out of desperation, we started losing numbers and we were looking for quantity over quality. And when that happened, the academy, the training academies were were thrown an impossibility. And what do I mean by impossibility? Was they were asked to transform people versus cultivating people. So let me give you a little example of this because this matters. When you go through a process before you get into the academy, you go through this exhaustive measure because people are looking for some potential in your ability or capability to do the work behind the wall. And what they're going to do is when they see that that you have potential, then they're going to send you over eventually to the academy, or that's what they should do. And then the academy will do what they can to cultivate you from that potential, from that spark. And I think Joe said at the beginning, it's not about rebuilding you from the foundation up. It's about seeing what you have and seeing if we can apply it to this type of setting. It's cultivating. You know, it's, hey, this person's got great potential. I don't expect them to have all the answers now, but I think they can learn the job. I think they can adapt and adjust. This person is worth cultivating. Unfortunately, we went through desperate measures. The pressure on the academy was to transform people, which means people would come in not really capable of doing the job, don't even have the potential to probably doing the job. And then now we go ahead and tell the academy, transform them. That's hard work. I mean, and that most likely is not going to happen. You know, cultivating, you got some momentum, you go with the momentum. Transformation is stopping, and really you're not even moving forward at this point. You're doing the impossible. So again, for the people that make it to the academy, remember something. It's not about transformation, about like what Joe said at the beginning, having that open mind, growing on your greatest potential, because that's what's been recognized and that's what's bringing you into this position. So, Joe, what's your thoughts on cultivating versus transformation, both from an academy perspective, but you as a cadet or a recruit, how does one differ?
Well, I mean, to me, you know, when you say cultivate versus transform, it rings right back to quality over quantity. You know, we used to, at one point, look for people that had a job history. You know, something in their history didn't necessarily have to be anything that was law enforcement certified or anything of that nature, but somebody who held a job before, that showed some integrity, showed up to work and that kind of stuff. You know, now, you know, post-COVID, you know, it's quantity over quality. And, you know, we're trying to recruit kids right out of high school that have no job experience, no job history, no kind of education as far as, you know, the work experience, you know, what's required of an employee. And we're trying to transform these individuals into strong cadets and strong officers. Doesn't always work out. Every once in a while, you'll get a handful of kids that'll you know, you see the potential in. You know, as a cadet coming in, you know, especially if you're really young, if you're coming out of high school, you know, we're not asking you to transform yourself. We're asking you to open yourself up to possibilities. You know, to being not so much a leader, but somebody with strict standards that will be able to communicate effectively, be able to handle the job, be able to handle, you know, most everyday employment issues. You know, the cultivation versus transformation, man, it just, for some reason, it rings right back to quality over quantity.
And the funny thing is, guys, believe it or not, because corrections requires so many different skills at so many levels, there's a lot of other jobs that maybe there's certain aspects that could apply to corrections. Like I know when I was a waiter, I had a lot of, once in a while I get disgruntled customers. You know, dealing with a disgruntled customer, I mean, yeah, there is the threat level, don't get me wrong, but communication was key in that element. So again, there could be things where you could draw similarities from that people could look at and say, yeah, this person has potential or this person doesn't. So, you know, if you're ever being interviewed, if you're watching this and you're being interviewed, you know, don't hesitate to say, well, I never worked in a jail or prison before, but when I worked at this job as a manager, this is how I dealt with, let's say, conflict. I mean, a lot of the big thing here is about communication, which is definitely going to be expressed in your learnings in those classrooms, because our effort now is to de-escalate when you can. All right, so the next thing, this is important to me. Hold on, I deleted that. I deleted the thought by I deleted the thought. This is a good thought though, so I'll just say it, guys. I'm not going to put it up there, but this is what I have written. Academy is meant to be cooperative, not competitive. Teamwork versus individualized effort. I want to give you something here that matters. I just remember this. That was important to me. I remember when we were doing the running in the academy, and there was one guy that he could run, man. I mean, he was ahead of the pack, and we all knew he could run. And he would always be the first person finishing the 1.5 miles by far. By far. He was just a runner. And it was great. We know the guy can run. It was great. But then I remember one of the instructors telling the person who was kind of always ahead of everybody that you're useless if you're entering here alone. Like, this isn't a competition. You're not meant to be first. You're meant to get the team and go there together. Now, granted, yes, it's always good to have that emergent response, but you're always going in as a team. So the person would run, be the first, and then the instructor would send them back. And I want him to go back to the people that are having trouble making it to the 15 minutes. And I want to see what he could do now to stay with the crew. Because this ain't, again, it's not a competition. It's not about being the best. I mean, yes, you want to push yourself to be your best self, 100%. Like if I'm able to do 25 tomorrow, I'm going to try for 26. There's always that level of improvement. But be careful of wanting to be the best overall. Because when you tend to be the best overall, you tend to push away teamwork, and you look for more personalized recognition. At the end of the day, you may be great at something, but let's not deny the fact that we need to be great together, because success in corrections is a team business. Nobody can do this alone. So if you're looking for individualized recognition, you're not going to find that in corrections, not in an effort to be successful. You need the team. So again, be cooperative and not competitive. But if you want to be competitive with yourself and be the best you could be, I agree with that. But not to the point where you're so competitive that the people that are on your team become competitors. What's your thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, the sole purpose of the academy is to promote teamwork, to rely on your coworkers, to rely on other officers. It's definitely, it's not meant to be competitive. It's supposed to be cooperative. You can be as physically fit as you want to be, but if you have no intuition to give those below you or beside you any kind of support to help them achieve that same goal, it's not teamwork. That, like I said, our sole purpose is to institute teamwork within the confines of the facility, because once you walk in them gates, you rely on your coworkers. You don't rely on yourself. You rely on your coworkers, and they rely on you. So, being competitive in this job, may be okay for you physically, but emotionally and mentally, as the team framework, it will debilitate that.
Yeah, and guys, again, I'm not saying not to be your best self, but you're not in this profession to be recognized as a solo individual. You want to lead teams to be successful. So again, always try to be your best self. Just be wary of the title of being best, because at the end of the day, I like what the instructor said. You're crossing the line first, but you left your whole team behind. At the end of the day, I guess our force comes from being a fist, not from being this one finger. So I really do. I love that. And for those that may disagree, I mean, guys, you got to see the importance of helping your teammate or helping your family get across that finish line. Because you made it in 8 minutes. That's great, but what about the rest of your team? So that to me, oh, by the way, I remember my last day in the academy, to reinforce this thought. Our instructor kind of brought the platoon together because we had 3 platoons, A platoon, B platoon, and C platoon, and we were A platoon. And he brought us all together. We circled around him, and he kept on bringing us as close as we can until it got really uncomfortable, and we were kind of like hugging each other. And he said, that's what it feels like behind the wall. At the end of the day, all you have is each other. And this is a business where family or teamwork, however you want to define it, matters. So again, I always stuck to that thought. Kind of the reason why I also stay in this profession, because I love the fact that we're willing to help each other. I love when the team crosses the finish line together at 14, 15 minutes, as opposed to one person doing it in 9 minutes. A few more. It's called the strategic use of us versus them mentality. The instructors are going to be hard at the very beginning of the academy, so expect to be stressed out. They're going to have zero forgiveness. They're going to be yelling you at all the time. They're going to try to build some generalized animosity. Again, this is all in my upcoming book. The reason why that's being done, guys, is because they want to bring the recruits together. They figure if they produce stress and the recruits share in that stressful experience, it actually has the ability to unite. Now, eventually, the instructors will let loose. It becomes a little bit less stressful because everybody starts, pushing away from the yelling and screaming and start really trying to push you forward. But they really got to see how you're able to handle stress. But the benefit of that is the stress does build unity amongst the recruits, which we'll touch on in a little bit because that's the next thought. But be wary that, or I just want to say, be advised that the yelling from the instructors, the stress that they put you on, ultimately is a tactic that they're utilizing to bring everybody together under such stressful circumstances. Would you agree with that, Joe?
Oh, absolutely. The instructors draw that line in the sand the first day, and they do it just for that reason, because it's a us versus the cadets. And, like you said, they do that as a tactic to, bring everybody together as a collective. The first 3 weeks, everybody's saying, Lieutenant Pomponio's a dick. I can't stand him. And by that fourth week, when we let loose and we have everybody functioning as a team, that's when the light bulbs go off. And that was one, and the only time I'll use the word transformation. That's the one transformation I always love to see, was when everybody pulled together, when all the cadets pulled together and utilize that as teamwork against me. That was always a good feeling to see that.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it's a strategic employment of it. And it's funny because I didn't get that until I was out of the academy. So it's something I wish I would have known more when I was going through it. And I want to mention something. So we talked about it builds unity amongst the recruits. Guys, after my 20 years, I'm working on my 21st now, or will be on my 21st. I didn't realize how much I enjoyed the academy when I was there. It's funny, you never realize the best moments when you live in them. It's only when you look back. And it's sometimes because we get so overwhelmed with the stress that we really don't take time to smell the roses and realize this is probably going to be one of the best times of our lives. And one of the things that's good about the academy, and I just want to mention this to agencies that don't send people to the academy first, is that it does connect you. You build a bond with the people that are around you. And if I could give advice to people that are getting ready to go to the academy, don't get so overwhelmed with the stresses and burden of what the academy does that you don't take time to seek bonds with your fellow recruits, whether they're going to your facility or not. Try to build bonds with them, because there is a need for that connection, because that connection really helps motivate you run to situations that normal people won't run to. You really want to have so much of a bond that an inmate attacking one of my fellow cadets is no different than an inmate attacking my family member. Because again, you have to kind of have that same motivation. So again, if I could mention that, outside the stressful situation, make it an intentional effort to build bonds with the people that you're working around, because again, that's going to help you run to a code without the worry of what can happen to you. say, again, bear with me. Of course, you always have to worry what happens to you. But again, it's that motivator that says, you know what, a lot of people, when they see something happening, they could go into self-survival mode because they don't feel connected to that individual it's happening to. And it's also a scary situation. But the more you build those bonds and you're intentional with it, and the more you see that connection that Joe's my brother, you don't automatically put yourself in that self-survival mode. You want to go in and save Joe. So again, building those bonds help motivate you to run the things that most people will run away from. What's your thoughts on that, Joe? Building bonds at the beginning of your career in the academy, and how does that translate into the facility during emergent times?
That's probably one of the most important things of the academy, and the one thing that I believe a lot of academies have kind of gotten away from, and it's one of the most important topics, because you want those people to be able to function as a team. You want them to be able to look out for one another, and you want them to ultimately function even during critical incidents as a team. You want them ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead of them, and being able to form that unity with your brother, with your sister, officer in that class. That's probably one of the most important things you can do, because once that bond is formed, some of y'all may be going to the same facility after graduation, and some of y'all may not, but the thought process is still there. I got to go in and make sure that I got my brother or my sister's back. That's what I was taught, and that's what I'm going to do.
Right. And again, guys, corrections, as I mentioned before, is a team sport. It's not about being the best, but how we could be together as a team. And that kind of plays out here as well. Most of the time, we are going to be selfless as a first responder, and then we have to kind of go through our head later on of what we just went through and basically, find some way to cope with it. But having said that, a lot of our acts are going to be selfless. So it's good to find that motivation by building those bonds that we should have with the people that we work next to. And again, the academy really helps establish that. So please look for that in the academy. That may be more intentional, that may be more on you, but I do believe the academy does provide an environment where it's easier to facilitate, again, with the stress and whatnot. And last thing, civilian training. I don't want to forget this, just as a sidebar. Those that provide the helpful role or maintenance, whatever. I mean, they got to understand how what their area of expertise is applies in a prison or jail setting. To send them in without any level of training, without any knowledge of dealing with the inmate population or what they're walking into, I believe is a huge failure on the facility. A lot of people come in with these specialized trades and they're really good at what they do, but they don't know how that is going to apply in a correctional setting. And that's where we should be able to be helping them, cultivating them, and letting them know that at all times, you have the agency's expectations. Because the biggest thing is you have a lot of people that serve these specialized functions that believe they serve the inmate directly because there's no one guiding them through it. It's like, no, you work for the agency, and let me tell you how this works. And then you could tell me how this may affect what it is that you need to offer so we could work together. But at the end of the day, if you don't introduce them to the ways of the prison and jail environment, they may be applying their expertise unfiltered directly to the inmate population. So the need to help unfiltered to an inmate, where the helper or the person prescribed to help believes they work directly for the inmate, is manipulation 101 waiting to happen. So the agency will come in and say, hey, so what's your talent? Oh, this is my degree. This is my expertise, blah, blah, blah. Oh, that's great. So let's tell you how this could apply here. And then you help them, you guide them through it so they can understand how their expertise and the agency blends. And that's also a team effort as well. Custody, frontline, we all can figure that out and work with the people from the outside who are now have these expertise that they're bringing behind the wall in effort to help us rehabilitate, fix stuff, whatever it is. Joe, what's your thoughts on civilian training? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Civilian training is paramount. We have courses down here, what we call offender management and situational awareness. You know, basically your jobs down here are split into what they call hazardous duty for those who actually work beyond the sally port with offenders, and non-hazardous duty for those who, you know, work up front in admin, don't necessarily work with offenders. But it's paramount because, you know, at least one person from every department, whether it's your mailroom, whether it's your classification, your count room, parole, medical, school, education, counseling, you know, that they're all going to work with offenders at one point in time. And, you know, they definitely have to be trained in manipulation. They have to be trained into custody awareness as to what could happen, what can happen, what's expected of them. You can't just put somebody in a job without any kind of formal training regarding offender management.
Yeah, and as I said, you got to kind of give them the expectations of the agency. So when they're guided in this profession, they have that filter. Because if not, most of their interactions, let's say, could be with the inmate population. So they got to be reminded of, you know, what the agency expects, so they stay in line with the agency's expectations and not the inmate's expectations. A whole different world with that. Hey, Joe, what's your final thoughts, sir?
Well, you know, for our upcoming and future cadets all over the country and in all 50 states, let me say welcome. I think you're going to enjoy the profession. I think it's something that's going to challenge you, and I think it's something that you're going to challenge us. You know, the old term, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm here to tell you can, because I learned something new every day up until the day I retired. So, you know, going with the mindset of I'm going to make a positive change. I'm going to do it with my team. And, you know, just be ready for what comes at you. It's nothing too bad, but be ready to be challenged.
And Joe, you're retired and you're still learning.
Yeah, every day.
Oh, well, you're back to work again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm still learning new aspect.
I was gonna mess with you, but I forgot you back. I was like, you just have nowhere to apply it, but actually you do right now.
Yeah, I actually do.
Yeah. So, hey guys, a great dialogue. You know, again, this is good information to have when going in. Just some knowledge of what to expect both ways, what you should expect, what they should expect from you. And I think out of all the advice that we gave, when me and Joe really partnered up on building the bonds, I think that matters, because not only does it help motivate you to kind of run those codes, but on another note, it motivates you to stay in this profession when times are challenging. Because at the end of the day, if we do this for each other, it could motivate you to stay even in the most trying of times. And this profession will challenge you. So again, I think this was a great dialogue. Thank you, Joe. And guys, if you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. The bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.